So in light of the release of the Logan trailer, which by the way is amazing, I did have the death of 16 million mutants planned for today, but instead we're going to do the all new, all different Old Man Logan, the first story arc, which is called Berserker. But I'm clickbaiting the hell out of this title because I think it'd be awesome to do. But this story arc really comes out of a continuation of the original Old Man Logan event. Now, for those of you guys who are familiar with Old Man Logan, bear with me for a second. Up until 2008, really, for between the mid 1990s up until 2008, for around 13 years, maybe 15 years, Wolverine had always struggled. He'd struggled in popularity for the longest time. He was a 90s character. He was high octane, he was fast paced. The problem was that when Marvel's stories began to shift away from being just action and focusing more on storytelling, no one really seemed to be able to write compelling stories about Wolverine. I mean, he was popular, he was just kind of a mainstay in Marvel Comics. People knew who he was because of his contributions, and in fact, by the time he was killed off in the Death of Wolverine story arc, he had appeared in something like 12 or 13,000 comics. So it was insane how wildly popular he was, but by that point, he was in the Avengers, he was on the X-Men, he was, I think it was maybe Mighty Avengers, New Avengers, he was everywhere, he was all over the place. And so the idea here was to provide a story that would be compelling for the character of Wolverine in the post-Civil War landscape in order to continue to draw interest in his character. Again, really just a way for Marvel to kind of build sales based on a popular character. And so in June of 2008, a writer by the name of Mark Millar released the Old Man Logan story. This was an 8-issue story arc. And what this did is it focused on a dystopian future where supervillains had risen up together and they had basically killed all the superheroes. And the way this worked was that the supervillains had kind of gone and attacked heroes, but sometimes they didn't really pair very well. Because of Spider-Man's spider sense, he was a very formidable opponent for almost anybody that he went against. When he went against villains like Mysterio, he was able to fend off against Mysterio. Venom was a little bit different, Carnage was a little bit different because they could evade Spider-Man's spider sense. But the fact remains here that not everybody's villains were the right kind of villains. And so under the leadership of the Red Skull, the villains were basically shifted around. They were moved around and they were paired against superheroes that they were best suited to defeat. Mysterio, because of his ability to cast illusions that can deceive the senses of different people, the 5 senses of the human body, he had been tasked with killing off the X-Men. And so what Mysterio did is he traveled to the Xavier Institute and he duped Wolverine into believing that 40 villains of the X-Men were invading the mansion. And when Wolverine killed them all, the illusion was lifted and he realized that he killed all the X-Men. And so what this did is it set in motion the ability for Red Skull to lead all these different villains in taking over the world, although we were only really shown North America. But the fact remains here that the basis behind this particular set of events was that it gave us a version of Wolverine who for around 50 years refused to pop his claws. Now, Wolverine himself was under the control of the Incredible Hulk, and the story continued much in the way that we would expect it to. Hawkeye showed up and basically had Wolverine join him on a mission to cast off the supervillains using what he believed to be an underground resistance group and providing them with the remnants of the super soldier serum to basically make them Captain Americas and allow them to fight these different villains. We saw a lot of cool things along the way. We saw that one kid had stumbled across Scott Lang's helmet and was using ants to kill people if they didn't pay a toll. We saw a giant body of Ant-Man, or I guess of Hank Pym, who had been killed. His body was decaying, so on and so forth. But the issue was that Wolverine's family lived on a farm that was under the control of the Incredible Hulk and his family. And so at the end of the story, after the Red Skull was defeated and they came back, Wolverine found that because he had taunted the members of the Hulk family because he didn't pay his rent, that they effectively killed off Wolverine's family. And so in response, for the first time in 50 years, he popped his claws and he killed the Incredible Hulk. Now, what this did is it allowed Mark Millar to sort of leave it open-ended and having Wolverine take the child and go into the future and more or less call it a day. But during the Secret Wars event of 2015, Brian Michael Bendis came back in an effort to basically take Old Man Logan and throw him into the all-new, all-different Marvel landscape and gave us a 4-issue Old Man Logan tie-in to the Secret Wars event. And what this did is it basically just gave us a scenario where Old Man Logan left his universe, so to speak, left his realm, and began traveling around Battle World and seeing all these different versions of superheroes that he didn't know existed, all these alternate realities like Days of Future Past and so on and so forth. And so in the all-new, all-different Marvel landscape, when Reed Richards and Franklin Richards and Molecule Man, when they had basically, returned reality to its normal form and recreated the multiverse, it allowed Old Man Logan to be thrown into the all-new, all-different Marvel landscape to take the place of the previous Wolverine who had died, with X-23 becoming the all-new, all-different Wolverine. So it seems a little weird, but basically in the all-new, all-different Marvel landscape, Old Man Logan is a fish out of water, and this is really what Jeff Lemire does. With his first story arc, he basically just tells us that from the perspective of Old Man Logan, all he remembers is a white light, which of course is when everything came to an end, and then he simply just woke up in this new reality. He woke up in the all-new, all-different Marvel landscape. Now, when he arrives here, he ends up in Times Square. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the only thing that Old Man Logan remembers before this white light was the Wasteland, was the original Old Man Logan storyline where the supervillains had taken over the world. And so when he arrives in this future and he sees, or when he arrives in the present day in all new, all different Marvel, and he sees that Times Square is not completely torn to pieces, that there's images of Tony Stark all over the place, it throws him for a loop, because to him, this is not the way things are supposed to be. This is not how they're supposed to be. In addition to this, he's still trying to gain his bearings because he doesn't remember a lot of what happened before. But while he's pursued by the police due to the fact that he's just simply standing around naked when he's attacked with a taser, suddenly his memory jumps back and he recalls the events of the Old Man Logan universe. And so the entire basis behind Old Man Logan's existence in all new, all different Marvel is to basically prevent that future from happening, because right now it's 2015 when this story was written. And this is one of the only times you'll actually ever see Marvel reference a specific date within their comics. But, Old Man Logan says it's 2015. It's a few years before the events of Old Man Logan, where the supervillains defeated all the superheroes. And so in his mind, he still has a chance to save the future, to keep that future from happening. The interesting thing about this is we also get flashbacks from Jeff Lemire. He expands on the original Old Man Logan storyline. And what he tells us is in that original universe, Wolverine and his son, again, living on this farm, were bartering what they had in order to gain tools that they needed in order to make money to tend to their farm. And because the tractor had broken down, because the tractor needed a replacement belt, what ended up happening is they traveled to a downed shield helicarrier, which was being used by a man by the name of Black Butcher. Now, Black Butcher is not a wildly important character here. And actually, once this flashback is done, Wolverine will even focus on that and he'll tell us that. But, Black Butcher was a C-level villain at best. He was never really a threat. It was almost as if, your average person, decided to wage war against the Avengers. He was on par with the Masters of Evil and so on and so forth, just never really relevant to the Avengers themselves. But in this post-apocalyptic society, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And this is basically a circumstance where, with the protection of the Hulk family, Black Butcher is able to operate with almost near impunity. He's able to force people to do things they wouldn't normally want to do, to force them to give things up in order to get the things that he wants. But he also runs, again, a goods trading store. Now, the entire basis behind this is, or I guess the entire reason for why Wolverine has such a deep hatred for Black Butcher is taunting Wolverine. Because again, in this original Old Man Logan story, Wolverine doesn't pop his claws. He doesn't fight because he killed the X-Men. And so in his mind, he doesn't want to become that person anymore. He doesn't want to go back to being that dark of an individual. And so where he is more or less put in a situation where he would normally fight when Black Butcher slaps his son, in the end, Wolverine basically walks away. He gets the belt that he needs, his son loses his hat, and that's basically it. Wolverine calls it a day. Now, the idea behind this is Wolverine making the case to his son that you have to know when to walk away, that if he had killed Black Butcher, then the Hulk family would have come after them, likely would have killed them, and done any number of things to their corpses. Who knows? That family was wildly deranged. And so again, for Wolverine, this is a matter of tracking down the Black Butcher for retribution. This really goes to the heart of the fact that Old Man Logan is really just kind of out of his mind here. He's really driven by an obsession which borderlines insanity. And the reason why I say that is once he tracks down the Black Butcher by interrogating and torturing various people, when he arrives, he immediately cuts off one of the arms of the Black Butcher and says, "You slapped my son." Now, that was the future Black Butcher. That was not the modern day one in all new, all different Marvel. And so the issue with this is that Wolverine's just kind of teetering on the edge of insanity. But because of this, he basically kills Black Butcher. And what he's done is he's made a list on his arm of the Butcher, Bruce Banner, Mysterio, and the Red Skull, all of whom he needs to kill in order to prevent this future from happening. And so what we do here is we basically jump to his encounter with the Incredible Hulk. Now, this was a really anticipated series of events for a couple reasons. The first is that because Old Man Logan did not know everything that was going on in this universe. For those of you guys who have not seen my video on all new, all different Hulk, what we know is that under the writing of Greg Pak, the mantle of the Incredible Hulk per se was basically moved away from Bruce Banner as we traditionally knew him, and instead was handed over to Amadeus Cho. Now, Amadeus Cho was really more of like a frat boy kind of Incredible Hulk. He was a jokester, he enjoyed his powers, he would hit on women, so on and so forth. It was a stark contrast to the Bruce Banner Incredible Hulk, who was wildly serious and who really just wanted to be left alone, and was very, very dangerous if pushed to the edge. But because of everything that's going on here, because of what's happening, we basically find Wolverine having tracked down the Incredible Hulk, who again at this point is Amadeus Cho. Now, because Wolverine doesn't know this, in his mind, the only difference here is that it's basically just the Hulk, and his goal is to kill the Hulk due to the fact that the Hulk family killed his family in the Old Man Logan universe. Now again, in the mind of Wolverine, he can basically stop all these things from happening. If he kills Black Butcher, his son will never be accosted. If he kills the Incredible Hulk, or if he kills Amadeus Cho Hulk, then the Incredible Hulk family will never take over the West Coast, and Wolverine will never be under their subservience. If he kills off Mysterio, he'll never be tricked into killing the X-Men, and if he kills off Red Skull, then none of the events would have happened in the first place. And so it's just an effort by him to prevent the future from happening. The issue with this is that with Amadeus Cho being much of a joker, being very silly, being comedic, at the end of the day, he also still recognizes the threat that Old Man Logan represents, simply because of the fact that his fighting prowess is very, very strong, but also because of the fact that he's so quick and he has adamantium claws that will allow him to cut through, the Incredible Hulk with very little effort. And so once the fighting between the two of them begins to come to an end, once Amadeus Cho settles down after having been carried away, once Wolverine regains his bearings, he asks him, are you Bruce Banner? And Amadeus Cho says, no, I'm not Bruce Banner, I'm Amadeus Cho. You have the wrong guy, I'm the new Hulk. And so, Logan's question is, where is Banner? And Amadeus Cho basically says, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you that information. Now, the reason behind this is largely because of the fact that at this point in Marvel Comics, Bruce Banner is a regular guy. He's not the Incredible Hulk anymore. That power was handed over to Amadeus Cho, who absorbed the Hulk essence. Again, I have a video on that, which you can find down in the description. But during his researches and during his efforts to basically find out everything that's going on to locate the Incredible Hulk, he also seeks out the refuge of Hawkeye, because again, Hawkeye was a major player in the original Old Man Logan story. But when he gets there, he basically realizes this is not Clint Barton Hawkeye. Instead, it's Kate Bishop Hawkeye. Now, for those of you guys who are not aware, again, I've got a video on her character down in the description, but Kate Bishop was more or less a member of the Young Avengers for a time, but was every bit as capable as the original Hawkeye, Clint Barton. And there was actually a storyline where it was sort of a passing of the torch, not officially in the sense that, Clint Barton gave everything up, but in the sense that he officially recognized that Kate Bishop was just as capable as he was. And so the idea was to have Kate Bishop go forward as the all-new, all-different Hawkeye in Marvel Comics, which was received kind of a series of mixed reviews from different readers. But the fact remains here that with Wolverine showing up here and looking for Clint Barton, he doesn't find him. Instead, again, he simply just finds Kate Bishop there. Now, this is very confusing to Old Man Logan, because for him, it's supposed to be Clint Barton. It's not supposed to be Kate Bishop. And so his goal is to basically track down Clint Barton to tell him everything that's going to happen in the future, that there's going to be danger there, that there's going to be, the idea of, the plan that he has is going to be a ruse by the Red Skull, so on and so forth. The goal is to effectively save Clint Barton from being destroyed. And so after conversing with Kate Bishop, he learns how capable she is. She initially asks even to become his partner, but he basically says, no, I work alone, but in the end has her come along with him. What Kate Bishop also does is she catches Old Man Logan up on a lot of what's taking place. She tells him that Odin's son is gone, that in his place is Jane Foster Thor. And again, it's more or less us as the reader sort of following Old Man Logan along as he picks things up. And that was really the basis behind his character, right? In Marvel Comics, was during the events of Secret Wars and in the events of All New, All Different Marvel, it is a chance for Old Man Logan, or for us as the reader, to follow him and to see his discovery through his eyes and to follow along with him as he makes these discoveries, which we're doing at the exact same time. Now, when the two of them arrive to what's supposed to be the lair of Mysterio, the question that's asked by Wolverine is, where is Mysterio? Where's he at? Because again, he wants to keep Mysterio from tricking him into destroying the X-Men. The problem is that as he begins to sniff out, as as he begins to try to locate Mysterio, he eventually comes across the trail of Old Man Captain America. Now, this is prior to the Captain America Hydra story arc, and this is prior to the events of Avengers Standoff, when Steve Rogers was returned to being young again. So again, for Old Man Logan, in his mind, you know, Steve Rogers is supposed to be young, youthful, vibrant, and a very capable leader. When he shows up in this all new, all different Marvel landscape, which continues on from Secret Wars, you know, Steve Rogers is old. And so again, it's very strange to him. It's a mishmash of different things. But the idea is to basically talk Wolverine down from his quest to go through and kill so many people. But, you know, Old Man Logan says that he's preventing a future from happening. He's effectively saving the future. But to the minds of Steve Rogers, to the minds of Kate Bishop, this man's insane, simply because of the fact that he's killing innocent people to preserve a future that's not guaranteed to happen. Now, this is where things get a little bit murky in the realm of Marvel Comics, and the reason why is because with Secret Wars having been an event that was planned out over the course of a couple years or so, but happened long after, I guess was planned out long after the events of Old Man Logan, the question becomes, did Secret Wars happen in the original Old Man Logan universe? If it did happen, then Old Man Logan has a point here. If it didn't happen, then he's basically a man off his rocker, because there's no guarantee that those things are going to happen. But the result is the question, I guess the question that Old Man Logan has is, what happened to the Wolverine in this reality? What was going on with him? And so what they do is they take him to the body of the original Wolverine from the mainstream Marvel universe and show him that he's dead, that he was encased in adamantium. And so what this does is this tells Old Man Logan, the future that you come from is not guaranteed to happen, because the past that you remember is not the past that happened here. Now, again, this is basically where things begin to get a little murky, and it requires a little bit of expansion here. After Old Man Logan, or when Old Man Logan was originally written, it was given to us as an alternate reality. And so while we weren't really given the backstory to the events during, you know, Old Man Logan's time as Wolverine alongside the X-Men, we were kind of left to assume that it was similar to the original, you know, to the mainstream Marvel universe, but we weren't explicitly told here. But in the mind of Old Man Logan, the past of this universe is the same past as his original universe. But when he discovers this body of himself encased in adamantium as he died in the original, you know, Death of Wolverine story arc, he's basically told, this is not your future, and this is not your past. This is not even your home reality. You are in a different universe than your original Old Man Logan story. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, at least I really hope it does. But the basis behind this is to effectively tell Old Man Logan, what you're doing here isn't right, because there's no reason to believe that Mysterio would kill off, or, you know, trick you into killing off the X-Men. There's no reason to believe that, you know, the Black Butcher would grow up, you know, would eventually become subservient to the Incredible Hulk, and there's no reason to believe that the Incredible Hulk would enslave the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. And so what this does is effectively allow Wolverine to kind of, or I guess allow Old Man Logan to sort of give up this quest with the background thought of keeping his future from coming to fruition. Now, he won't necessarily be as active as he is in the story in trying to keep the future from happening. It'll really be more of an exploration with regards to him looking at the world around him. The problem with this is that almost immediately after he sets off, he's approached by Storm and the X-Men, who are again traveling around trying to grab those mutants who have not been attacked or not been, you know, exposed to the Terrigen Mist, and who haven't quite died yet. So with that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end. I know it can be a little daunting with regards to the Old Man Logan story. I know it can be a little bit confusing. I did the best I could trying to make sense of all this, but if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section, and I'll answer them as best I can, because again, you know, Jeff Lemire kind of relies on a lot of existing information, and it can be a little bit, you know, disconcerting, jumping back and forth between alternate realities, past and present, so on and so forth. But with that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and yeah, I will catch you guys later. Peace.